Bonjour. Good morning. My name is Rasmia Kirmani-Frye, and I'm the director of the Brownsille Partnership, which is an initiative of a larger national nonprofit organization in the United States called Community Solutions. I want to first thank the host committee and this conference for inviting me to speak. I feel incredibly honored to be among so many amazing people and meeting so many amazing people from all over the world and in so many different communities. And I also want to thank Quebec for really welcoming us with open arms and with such a stunning landscape. So I want to begin by describing Brownsille because it's in Brooklyn. It's a place that many people may not have heard of, and I will tell you, in New York, it is a place that many people have not heard of. So in New York, and I may say this a few times, if you ask people in New York City who are not from Brownsille, or even those who are from Brooklyn, if they've heard of Brownsille, they will either say no, or they'll say, oh, you mean Texas? So I want to begin by really getting the statistics and facts out of the way. So, and many of the statistics and facts, and I will go into this later, really form the dominant narrative of Brownsille. And it's a narrative that the press and lots of people like to say over and over and over and over again, as that this is a poor community, a violent community. There is a high joblessness rate. I will go through these. Those of us who live and work in Brooklyn believe in a counter-narrative. A huge piece of that counter-narrative is the age-friendly work that we do there, which permeates every aspect of our community. We did not need to become an age-friendly community. We are an age-friendly community. So let's get those pesky facts out of the way, which inform our work, and they're important, but they are not, again, representative of the totality of this dynamic community. Brownsille has the highest concentration of public housing in North America. Think about this when you think of the size of Brownsille, which is less than a square mile, 85,000 people. It's over 100 buildings of public housing, which represents over 800 floors. Those are fun facts. And about 28% of the population is 65 and over. The median income in the community is $26,000 a year. The median income in government housing is roughly $10,000 a year in New York City. I often describe Brownsille as urban-rural, which is an interesting way to describe it. But the reason why I do is to paint a very specific picture, that this is a community that is dense. This is a community that is often disconnected. So it does have that feeling of urban-rural. It is predominantly African-American, to the tune of 85 to 90% of the population. Okay, those pesky facts. They're important, but as I've said, it is not the only narrative. So, 32% unemployment rate in a good economy. Highest imprisonment rate in New York City, 1% college graduation rate, 36% high school graduation rate. That's a picture of an aerial view of many of the public housing developments in Brownsille. Another piece of the dominant narrative, and again, I call it the dominant narrative because there is a counter-narrative. The dominant narrative, 48% of Brownsille residents receive income supports. You can read the slide. 79% of Brownsille children are born into poor families. violent crime rate is 3 times the city average. So there's a new narrative in Brownsville. There's a counter-narrative. Other things exist in Brownsville. Families exist in Brownsville. Leaders exist in Brownsville. People who are working exist in Brownsville. Things grow in Brownsville. People love each other in Brownsville. It is not a transient community. It's a community where the elders and the community leaders have lived there for 40 years plus. It is an aging population. People are not aging and retiring to Florida from Brownsville. They are aging in place and living their whole, and by whole, I mean big lives in their beloved community. So a community-based approach for us is an approach in which everything flows. It's an age-friendly approach. It's a pro-housing approach. It's a pro-health approach. So I will focus in this talk really on activities that improve health, placemaking, safety, and lives that are led by community residents in Brownsville. First, let me start with the mission of our parent organization, because I think it's important to know that the organization that responds to the community is in line with the community. So Community Solutions, our mission is to help communities solve complex problems. And we do this by investing in local capacity and capabilities. And what that means is that, I'm sure everybody knows, communities of any kind, whether they're geographic, neighborhood, are very, very astute and good at defining what the problem is. They are also very, very good and astute in defining what the solution is. Often a solution does not need to be imposed. What we can do is create a space, convene those solutions, support those solutions that have been defined by the community, and make the connections so that those solutions can come to bear. So it is our community-based approach that informs all of our age-friendly work. And for these, I'm going to read through each one, because I think each one is important, but I'll go fast. The first is work on core problems with high potential payoff. And this is often the solutions that community members bring to us, or bring to each other. We need more fresh fruit. Why isn't the housing better? We want more activities for young people. Focus on the outliers, both the most vulnerable and the bright spots. Often those bright spots can lead you to the most vulnerable people. Often the most vulnerable people have solutions themselves that need to be invested in. Identify, rally, and train local solvers and leaders who are not always in official positions of authority and who are often willing, able, and committed to confront those positions of authority when they need to change. And we need to invest in those people. This is my favorite one. Ignore the laggards. Man, everybody will have somebody who will tell you, oh, nothing's going to change, you can't do it, it's always been this way. They can get out of the way. And you can say it with a smile. But it's very important. It's a very important thing to do. Just get on with the getting on. Ignore those laggards. Enable collaboration. Provide the space, tools, and support for those solutions to come forward. There are more. Provide clear, measurable, time-bound goals and room to innovate. Celebrate what's been achieved. And as a community-based organization that's supporting the residents, if you say you're going to move something 1/4 of an inch, you better move it 1/4 of an inch. And not 1/8 of an inch and not 1/2 an inch. They need to be clear, measurable, time-bound, and then communicated. Use data to track performance, identify and celebrate and share what works. We also, and it's not on here, steal whatever works and give credit. We love that. I've taken ideas from everywhere and applied them to Brownsville, and then asked the people who you've stolen from, stolen is a little strong, to come to see their work somewhere else. Assume abundance, realign resources to priorities. Often we don't do this. What are the resources? What are the assets? How can they be in line with what the community says its priorities are? Bring those resources, ideas, and tools from any sector. This is the polite way to say steal stuff. Achieve reach through impact through collaboration. You don't have to do everything yourself. Who are the best, who do what they do, and will they do it with you? Often you just need to pick up the phone. And I say this many times as I move to the next slide about what we do, that it's a little bit like dating. Finding over 20 organizations to work with. Some of those organizations who become partners, it's like you got to bring them flowers and chocolate and meet the parents, and it's a long dating process. Other partners, you meet each other, it's love at first sight, you move in together, that's it, you're family. So just be adaptable, I think. So our mission in Brownsville is a collective impact approach. This is what we do to community development, involving residents of public housing and over 20 organizations that include government, other nonprofits, to create measurable change, and we focus on 3 strategic priority areas that play out in different subjects. So stabilizing vulnerable families can also increase people's health. Reducing violence can also change what a corner looks like and how people can move in their community. So I'm going to go through some examples that pay particular attention to our older community members, but they have community-wide benefit. So one is our Intergenerational Advisory Council, which was formed almost a year ago. And this council is the voice of the direction that what does age-friendly mean? I shouldn't be defining that. And as I was told by my council members, there are different kinds of seniors. There are young seniors and old seniors. And they prefer to be called seniors, don't get fancy. And that intergenerational doesn't mean having a bunch of teenagers, just teenagers. It means you need people in their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. That's intergenerational. So these are the leaders. These are the problem solvers. These are the folks who may not be authority, but they are. So on the slide, you see Miss Betty and bike lanes. Now, what the hell does bike lanes have to do with a community-based approach? Well, Miss Betty is 75 years old. She is the president of her senior bike club in Brownsville, and there were no bike lanes in Brownsville. So people didn't feel safe riding their bikes. Brownsville, as I said, urban, rural, disconnected. There was no bike lines that connected Brownsville to the other neighborhoods around it, and New York City is a city of neighborhoods. So Miss Betty came to us and said, I want bike lanes, and we did our job. We got the Department of Transportation, we got Transportation Alternatives, which is a nonprofit organization, to work with us to bring together other residents, and we did a 2-year transportation planning project, participatory, and last month the bike lanes were laid. Now this is a huge win because it's not just about riding a bike. It's about networks. It's about increasing social connectivity. It's about traffic calming. It's about 500 kids getting helmets. It's about a lot of things. Thank you. Next. Our Hope Summit. Our Hope Summit was the idea that came out of the Intergenerational Advisory Council. Was a 2-day community participatory planning process about what to do with vacant land, what to do about where people feel safe. Over 200 people came. And it was a mix of community residents, policymakers, and at the end of it, and it was truly intergenerational. And there were big maps and stickers, and at the end, we came up with a document that prioritized land use, prioritized issues for the community. That's also Miss Betty in the purple. And the goal here is to create a community-based plan that can actually be enacted upon. So out of this came what we call our HPAC, which is our Hope Planning Advisory Council, who takes each of the issues, and we will create not just meetings, but actions around each of those issues and invite decision makers. Brownsville as a community has not been rezoned in 30 years. And that is different than, let's say, another community in the Upper East Side, which has been rezoned twice in the last 10 years. What economic opportunities might be available in this community? Youth Market. This is a notorious corner in Brownsville. It's the corner of Rockaway and Livonia. If you ask the police precinct, it's the hottest corner in Brownsville. Drug dealing, shootouts, you name it. This is intentional placemaking. This is a market run by Brownsville youth on the most dangerous corner in Brownsville that has produce from organic farmers that seniors can go to, use senior bucks, health bucks, whatever, to buy their produce. It has changed the way people experience this corner. It's changed the way people talk about this corner. It is, last year, we'll find out this year, the highest grossing youth market in New York City. Walk the Ville. This is our walking group. Thank you. A walking group might seem like a benign thing. This is a walking group made up of seniors that is 150 strong, registered walkers. It is very powerful. It is an agent of change in the community. It is placemaking. It is decreasing violence. It's led by the man in the blue shirt, who is a 75-year-old marathoner from New Jersey. The ladies love Sid. Now, what happens when, on a typical walking day, it's probably about 50 or 60 walkers, walk outside? They reactivate spaces that people felt unsafe in to begin with. It's not taking the police to do this. It is taking an age-friendly approach to placemaking and violence reduction. And it's creating senior leaders. Thank you. So all of the examples, and I probably won't get to go through this, but if you want to know about what's coming next, I'm happy to talk about it later. All the examples that I gave you together are an age-friendly, community-based approach that results in intentional and unintentional placemaking, results in increased leadership development, increased community safety, increased transportation options, increased civic participation, the development of positive social networks, and true intergenerational collaboration towards community development directed by the community. So what? There's still, people will say, point to those facts and say it's still poor. There's still crime. You can still point to that dominant narrative, but now there's a demonstrated counter narrative backed by a proven approach. It is that counter narrative and those actions that are strengthening the capabilities and the capacities of Brownsville to challenge that dominant narrative. We're not done, but we are on our way to catalytic, and I use that word intentionally, catalytic, positive change because of the strength of a community-based approach that we are doing together. Now, I would like to end by saying thank you, but also, and I will embarrass them, I would like Miss Gloria and Miss Dolores to stand. They are founding members of our Intergenerational Advisory Council. So, without whom, there would be no work. So, thank you. Thank you all very much.